Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Tonight, as I was looking through the news, I came across an announcement that Donald Trump is now online, and that he's going to be coming up with his own little tweets and press releases and things like that. And I think it's been online for a little while. I wanted I saw that it's at donaldjtrump.com if you're interested. And I saw one of the things about the things that he believes in, and that he's talking about online. And I would like to refute that idea. I'd like to prove it to my best of my ability, open up for debate and prove that his statement is false. Okay. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I believe that the reason that he did that is because of my letter to the Supreme Court, and this is on my website. So if you can refute this letter, I would like you to try and do that and see if you can, or if Donald Trump can refute it. I'm going to challenge him to let's say a refutation duel and see. I'm going to try to refute his one statement about rights, and then let's see if he can refute what I have written here. And this is on the organization website. Okay, so what I did was, in this letter to the Supreme Court, I said, misunderstandings have led to laws and practices that are based on the letter of the law rather than the intent of the law. Our legal system has 3 levels, not 2. The 3 levels are the principle, the power, and the project, or in the case of our legal system, they are universal law, constitutional law, and federal law. When any law or practice is based on only the power and the project ideas, it leads to the letter of the law rather than the intent, and it leads to chaos. It is based on the letter of the law rather than the intent of the law. So let's say a government is established by a constitution to do the things that the average person, individuals, cannot do. Like, we all kind of chip in and ask them to defend our country. They're responsible for defending us. They're responsible for building highways. If we had to come up with some sort of transportation system, nobody could afford to go anywhere, because how many people could put in, let's say if a farmer put in a 1 mile or 2 miles of interstate highway, we would never vote for anything, because it would, or you see what I mean, it would just never work. Not that we wouldn't vote for it. Okay, so now what Donald Trump is doing now, so I'm looking at the 3 levels of the universe, the principles, the power, and the project. So this is the principles, the power, and the project. Let's call this the Holy Trinity of ideas for the, let's say, the 3rd dimension. It's probably different when you look on higher dimensions, but right now what we're doing is we're looking at the Father, the Mother, and the Son idea, and that's why I called it that. The many centuries ago, the men, the power, the women, the mothers, and the women were respected and honored, and then the male energy kind of took over, and it made the Holy Trinity the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But when you look at this idea, that doesn't cut it. So I'm going to call this the Holy Trinity now, the 3 levels of the universe. Okay, so now Donald Trump's statement is this one statement that I'm going to refute. Other people can refute other things, but I wanted to, because I wrote this letter, I'm going to talk about this idea. Donald J. Trump said, "We know that our rights do not come from governments, they come from God, and no earthly force can ever take those rights away. That includes the right to religious liberty and the right to keep and bear arms." Okay, So now, when our unalienable rights, our founding fathers said in the Declaration of Independence. Now, think about where they were at the time. King George III was a very oppressive king. King of England was very oppressive. And if you read the Declaration of Independence, what they said in there, the oppression that it's almost nauseating to read that document because of all the terrible things that the King George did to the colonists and how they were treated. So when you stop and think that no earthly force can ever take those rights away, earthly forces like King George III took away the rights of our founding fathers, founding parents, and denied them their rights. And now so we have our unalienable rights, come from our Creator. Our unalienable rights come from our Creator, but our constitutional rights come from our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Now, let's say that the father idea is the principles of our unalienable rights. That means they apply to every person on the planet. They apply to every atom in the universe because they are universal. They are universal. They apply to every atom in the universe. It's our relationship with God. Our Creator gives us these rights so that we can have our relationship with our Creator to fulfill our purpose in life, the reason we were born. Okay, so now that has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has to do with everybody. When our government goes in, then basically this applies to every atom. This applies to aliens on the far side of the universe. This is universal law, and I'm not going to be able to prove it right now, but this goes all the way back to the God within the God within the God within the God, which is a spiritual idea, but I'm not ready to use that to prove it anymore in this refutation. So let's say that Donald Trump says Donald Trump knows that our rights do not come from governments. Is he talking about unalienable rights? Did he leave out an important word? Our rights come from our Creator, our unalienable rights, and basically when somebody is oppressive, that's breaking universal law. So let's say that children are taught the golden rule in kindergarten. In church, you learn do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There are courthouses around mostly in the South, that say do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you go and you see them chiseled on the front, above the front door of the courthouses. So this is something that it's called karma and dharma. In Asian countries, it's called the golden rule. It's called as you reap, so shall you, as you sow, so shall you reap. It's something where everybody around the world has been introduced to that. In fact, I watched a movie one time. It was called Enemy Mine, and it was back when was it Lou Gossett Jr. and what was the name of that? It's an old movie that came out like in the 1960s, and basically here these two enemies are on this stranded space, and they're stranded on this planet. They're shooting each other down because of the war. They get shot down and they're stuck together on this planet, and they start to recognize that they have something in common, and that is universal law. It's the truth that applies to every atom in the universe, and that's what I say in my I think. So what we have right now is we have our principles. Now, when we stop and think of it, we look at an application of this in the Ten Commandments. Moses came down with the Ten Commandments and he said, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. All of these things are things that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So basically, we're looking at our unalienable rights. And when you break universal law, that's what you reap. If you are sowing discord, you get discord back. If you topple a government, like in the exit strategy for Iraq, when the United States toppled Iraq, the government for the Iraq War, there were no weapons of mass destruction, and we collapsed our power base, and now we are being toppled. Okay, our government is being toppled now. We took away the unalienable rights of the Iraqi people to be able to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or now what we in our organization say, the right to create our life without interference, to be treated fairly and equally, to have a voice in our government. Because these create a sense of balance in the world. They counter the 7 deadly sins. And I'll go into that in another time period. I've talked about that many times in my light source invention, which is these 7 principles counter the 7 deadly sins. So let's say that God, in heaven, people don't die. So we're talking about universal law. We're talking about the 7 principles of universal law that counter the effects of the 7 deadly sins. Okay, now, so that is that. The Constitution is the application of that in the United States. Our Constitution doesn't apply in any other country. They have the right to apply universal law any way they want to. But so our government, it says, that our rights do not come from governments, they come from God. So he's talking about unalienable rights, but he's talking about governments. But the governments, remember, are applying this idea of universal law in our own government, and no earthly force can ever take these rights away. But the reason that we started our own government was because King George III was oppressive and was taking away our rights. When people are playing these games, our rights, you lose your rights, and that's how people who've been dragged into a genocide have lost their rights. So genocide is one of the ideas of revenge, and that's what I talked about with this drawing. Revenge is the pentacle of power, and this is grabbing for power. So we're talking about the application of power. Our Constitution gives our elected officials the power when they take their oath of office. They assume responsibility. We give them responsibility when we elect them, but they assume the responsibility when they take their oath of office that they will uphold the Constitution, not a person. They swear their oath to the Constitution, and that's where we get the Bill of Rights, our rights to freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to the rights to bear arms, the Second Amendment, the freedom of the press to assemble. So when we talk about our rights, we have to look at the rights that our Constitution gives us, and it says that they don't come from the government, but our rights. So he's confusing this idea of our unalienable rights, and if our government is denying another country their unalienable rights, then we face the backlashes. Now that's the idea of karma and dharma, that if you're wise, you help other people get their life. If you want to get your life, you help other people get their life. And that way you're working with universal law rather than against it. If you kill somebody, then basically you lose your life. And that's why our legal system basically has like capital punishment and things like that. So they say the right to religious liberty. Now, that is such a big mess, because we're talking about the application of religion, and we're talking about, okay, now what does he mean by religious liberty? That the Christians have the right to their religious liberty, but the Muslims don't? How about the Hindus? How about the Jews? Okay, the Jews are fine from this perspective, but the Hindus and the Muslims are, we got to keep them out of the country. Let's get the right walls here. No, because religious is the freedom of religion is basically you have the right to respect your God or your creator, or if you pray to, that's where you run into all these weird ideas. Your right to religion is basically the government doesn't have the right to interfere in our religion. We don't have the right to target another person. We don't have the right to deny anybody their right to their relationship with their creator, because that's their purpose in life. Okay, so now what we have right now, and that includes the right to religious liberty and the right to keep and bear arms. Now, the right to keep and bear arms, that happened because of militias, and that was a long time ago. So the right to keep and bear arms, but does that mean they have the right to shoot people? No, because you don't have the right to shoot people. So you can hunt, but you don't have the right to shoot another person. So assault rifles, how about our policy? So we're looking at the project idea, the sun idea, is our policy has to stand on unalienable rights, and it has to stand on constitutional rights, because otherwise we are denying other people. You see, we're talking about defending our country, but how do we defend our country? What is the policy that God would have us do? Okay, that has to do with all countries, all people being considered equal, all people having their rights, their unalienable rights, their constitutional rights, you could say, how their government applies that. No government has the right to topple another government. So our policy has been based on revenge, which means all of our foreign policy basically needs to be purified because it's kind of illegal. We have, and that's what our government. We have two plans to purify. Our organization is working to purify the U.S. legal system. Okay, so now what's happening is Donald Trump has taken, I believe, I don't know for sure, but he has taken my letter to the Supreme Court, and he's trying to refute it on his website. And basically, he didn't impress me at all about that statement that he made, because basically he went against the three levels of the universe. It's a power grab, you could say. He's left out the father idea, unalienable rights. He's combined these ideas. Now, one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, because that's what leads to character defamation campaign. That's what leads to revenge, and it's basically like voter suppression, war. And he said, okay, the game of anger is denying people a voice in their government, one of our unalienable rights. Okay, so we're talking about our unalienable rights from our Creator to have a voice in our government, which means voter suppression is against the law. against universal law, and technically speaking, it's against constitutional law too, because our Constitution is an application of this, and it's creating chaos in our legal system. We don't have to actually have an Equal Rights Amendment. We don't really have to have our Black Lives Matter, because basically, if you want to have a stable country where everybody gets their unalienable rights, that it's not oppressive government. See, the thing is, what happens is with this demonstration here, by the time it goes the three times around, and by the time it gets to the third where there's acts of terrorism, we're one step away from being a failed state with no government whatsoever. And where we are right now with Donald Trump and trying to overturn elections and doing this, starting rebellion, basically we are one step away from not having a government. Okay, so what we have right now, when the grand lie is being told, the only thing we can trust, ripples of effects have gone off from the Iraq War, that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and people still believe there were. Basically, the ripples of effects have gone out. We've gone around twice now, and the third time, we're almost to the point, because of the backlash of universal law. You can't just brush it away. You can't sweep it under the table and under the rug and expect people to say, well, it's fading off into history. It's not fading off into history. We're facing the backlashes of universal law now. And basically, for us to do that, we have the Dharma aspect of it is we have to stop playing the games, stop. And then we have to stop playing at games, and then we have to turn it around and guarantee to every person on the planet their unalienable rights. And that's what we're doing with the exit strategy for Iraq proposal, is we're going to help to rebuild the Iraqi people, Iraqi government, give them the opportunity to have their unalienable rights, and then we get ours back again. That's where the first government proposal is the exit strategy for Iraq, and the second one is the constitutional amendment. Now, this applies on every level. So let's say that we have the sin of lack. Okay? How about this idea of abundance? How about compassion? Let's go with compassion. Okay, this is the sin, the lack of compassion. People who lack compassion use alcohol. So let's say to make themselves feel better. Okay, this is something that Oprah Winfrey would talk about. You know, using food to make yourself feel better. Wouldn't you say something about that? Okay, I'm eating to make myself feel better. I'm not eating to nourish my body. I'm just nervous eating, that kind of thing. Okay, so what happens is you have to understand what you're doing, and then you have to stop relying on alcohol or drugs. You can't get your life by doing that. You can't get your life by being an alcoholic. Basically, you have to stop, and then you have to start figuring out how you can get your life. So it's like falling into the abyss, and then you have to work your way out of the abyss, like a 12-step program. And that's where this is what my teachings are all about, is how to rocket out of the abyss. Okay, so now I am going to challenge Donald Trump to refute my statements here. And if he can do that, let's see if he can do that. Let's see if he can come up with a better idea. So if anybody can refute this, put it down in the comments section. I'm anxious to hear, and if you know Donald Trump, I'll put a comment to him to refute, to see if he can refute. First of all, this letter to the Supreme Court. It's on the website, and see if he can justify his statement that is on his website. Okay, I'm not going to address any of the other statements that he has, what he believes in. I'm just going to look at this because of my letter to the Supreme Court. And if you can refute it, go ahead. Let's see what you can do. Put it, like, share, and subscribe, and see. And most of all, share. Share it with Donald Trump. Okay, thanks a lot.